Hey, Vlad here from devinsideyou.com. Welcome to another book review. Today we're reviewing Practical FP in Scala, a book that I wish I had read a couple of weeks earlier, but we'll get to that. Practical Functional Programming in Scala, a hands-on approach, came out in the early 2020, and the second edition came out in the summer of 2021, a couple of months ago actually. It's written by Gabriel Volpe, a well-known member of the Scala community, an OSS contributor, a speaker, and obviously a book author. If you're looking for blogs, talks, books about functional programming, Scala, Haskell, or Nix, Gabriel has you covered. Let me say this right out of the gate. Practical FP in Scala is neither an introduction to Scala, nor is it an introduction to functional programming. It's for someone who is very comfortable in Scala but has some doubts about the FP side of things. Do not get this book if anything I say next sounds foreign to you. Implicits, type classes, higher kinds, referential transparency, I/O, monads, monad transformers, you get the idea because this list is anything else but exhaustive. This book is for people who already know Scala, functional programming, and are even familiar with the CATS ecosystem, and are just uncertain about how to put a full-fledged application together. Let's be honest, most information out there are just bits and pieces, and even I myself often wondered how they all fit together. On the other hand, if you're someone who is a Scala developer but not a functional one, for example, if you're using the Lightband stack, and if you're just curious about how real production applications look like, this book has the answers you seek. To be more precise, and some of you might disagree with this book is, if not mostly, but largely focused on the tagless final embedding in large applications. In fact, and this is what I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I discovered this book when I was in the middle of my own tagless final series here on YouTube, and had I read it a couple of weeks earlier, it would have saved me a lot of time. The second portion of my playlist is heavily inspired by this book, and I even mentioned it in there. Even though the number of pages grew from 240 to 300, the book remained largely the same in the second edition, so you might want to get that one. In fact, you're probably not able to get the first one anyway. The biggest change is the upgrade to CATS Effect 3. It's still Scala 2 though. I speculate that upgrading the application written within the book would require a lot of changes, since a lot of libraries in the first, well, now in both editions, use macros, and as we all know, macros is different between Scala 2 and Scala 3. But this is just a speculation on my part, so please take it with a grain of salt. The book is not really divided into parts, but I'll take the liberty to divide it into two. The first part contains only 2 of 11 chapters. These chapters are about the best practices and the tagless final embedding. The rest of the book is about building a full application with database, caching, logging, testing, and deployment strategies. Really, you could start your own startup after reading this one. The book starts out by introducing you to, and stressing the importance of, some best practices that you might not be familiar with. These are things like strong types, value classes, new types, and refinement types, and I have videos about all of them on my YouTube channel if you're interested. One of the tricky things in functional programming is dealing with state, especially in a concurrent setting. It feels like the whole purpose of this book is to answer hard questions like this, and so the next section is about the state monad and its differences to RAF, a functional wrapper around Java's atomic graphs. Then it goes into a couple of anti-patterns like exposing monad transformers in public interfaces, or using the abstract sequences instead of the direct implementations like lists and vectors. There is also a section about functional error handling, and that's pretty much it. Now draw the rest of the owl. As already mentioned, the second chapter is about tagless final, and the rest of the book is about building a full-fledged application, which is on GitHub, by the way. It's got a bunch of stars and forks and everything, so you might want to check it out. It's a shopping cart application, so it's easy to reason about. Check out the build file if you want to see the stack. There are many links to further reading throughout the book, and at the very end there is also a bonus chapter which talks about some even more advanced topics like MTL, optics, tofu, and concurrency. Now, I'm a bit biased since I love architecture, and structuring full-blown applications is my favorite topic, but still, I can't resist. This is the first book that I give a 10 out of 10. Just make sure to set your expectations correctly. I already mentioned that it's not an introductory book, but it was immensely helpful for me personally. If you have seen my Tagless Final series, then I'm sure that you're going to notice the similarities. Really, this book is so good, I'll make sure to read it again at some point. Take it for a spin, it's $40 on LeanPub. Oh wow, I believe that this is the shortest book review that I've ever made, and I think that this speaks for how well structured this book is. Really, it's just best practices, tagless final embedding, let's build a full-blown application, and just a couple of snacks at the end. I hope you enjoyed this book review, and I'll see you in the next one. For now, as always, it's been Vlad from devinside.com. Don't forget to like this video if you did, subscribe if you want to improve the developer inside you, and if you learned something today, consider supporting me on GitHub sponsors or Patreon, and thus watch my videos weeks and sometimes even months before everyone else. And most importantly, take care.